Hello everyone and welcome to this Lunch and Learn. Today we're going to talk about how to turn observability into business value. We're very happy that you are here to listen to us today. And your presenters are me, Sarah.
And me, Anders. I'm a solution architect and advisor for our observability solution and observability services. I've been working with observability and the previous discipline of APM for a little bit over 15 years and are now working a lot with consultancy and advisory.
And I work as an observability sales specialist within Conscia Observability, focusing on Sweden and work with our Swedish customers and the Swedish market. And I don't have as long of experience as Anders, but I've been here for 3 years now, so adding up.
Will be in the end.
Yes. So before we start, a bit of background to who we are. We work, as we mentioned, within Conscia Observability, where we focus on gaining visibility in the entire IT environment for our customers in different forms, but mostly in services, but we also have different solutions and consultancy around this area.
And we divide it mostly into, as you said, solutions, which is basically platforms, but most of the time we spend on managed services, which is basically us providing or managing an observability platform for our customers. We also have consultancy services and on the side, I guess, mostly around advisory services to help with these kind of things we will be discussing today, basically.
Yeah. So for this webinar, we hope that you leave with a bit more knowledge than you did coming into this. One of it is that you will be able to explain why observability matters as much to the business as it does to the IT side. What observability actually means and how it differs from monitoring. It can have different meanings. Today we'll focus on a specific one. And we'll also hopefully leave you with why a strategy matters more than a platform when it comes to observability. And lastly, we'll try to leave you with a few keys you can take into your toolbox on how to achieve a successful observability practice. So with no further ado, we'll dive into this with a bit of a question we'll leave you with. You don't need to answer it to us, but just for yourself, or think about if you ever ask yourself this question. And it's when a business critical service goes down, how quickly can you detect it, see who's affected by it, and also understand the cost of it?
It sounds like a very normal and common question, but to be honest, not many of the companies and the companies that we work with are actually thinking about this, and it's a good input and a good thing to have when you start a strategy for your observability.
Yes, so diving into a strategy, why should observability actually be strategic? So what we see is that the business often talk about that IT and business is two sides of the same coin. On the business side, it's about growth, profitability, customer experience, resilience, and innovation. And on the IT side, it's about performance, stability, risk data, and governance. And the challenge is that the two sides are often managed separately. The business talks about growth, AI and efficiency, and IT talks about incidents, logs, systems, and operations. And this is exactly where observability becomes strategic in an organization. And observability is sort of the thing that ties the two sides together of the coin. It makes it possible to translate technical signals into business meaning, basically. And not just to see that something is wrong, but to understand what is affected, who is affected, how big is the consequence, and what needs to be done first, what should we prioritize. Let me give you a few examples of this. So if a critical application goes down, on the IT side, that's a performance problem. But on the business side, it can mean a poor customer experience, lost revenue, or even lower productivity. On the IT side, right now, it's a lot of scaling with AI initiatives. And for IT, there's a question of data, governance, and operations. But on the business side, that's about innovation, speed, and competitiveness. And that's why we see observability no longer as an operations tool, but more of a management discipline, rather. And the most successful organizations that we see that are practicing observability doesn't just monitor today. They use it to reduce noise, strengthen resilience, improve decision quality, and directly link IT performance to business outcomes.
So let's take a step back. That was a little bit around observability and strategies. Let's take a look at what is traditional monitoring versus observability. There's many points and many ideas around this, but this is sort of what we're thinking about, at least in this case. So traditional monitoring basically is there to tell you that something broke. You set some sort of threshold, maybe you monitor some sort of technical KPI somewhere that will alert you to something is abnormal. It doesn't say that much about why and how to fix it, but it's basically there to tell you that you have a problem. If we dive into observability, as you can see in the picture, the nice diamond there, it covers a bigger spectrum. There's a lot of parts of the platform that's actually being covered by observability solutions. And the purpose of this is to tell you not only that you have a problem, but also to tell you where it is and why you have a problem, basically. To help you with us, the observability platforms have a lot of AI ops and these kind of things, basically. The traditional monitoring part is, or was, or still is, I guess, built more for stable, static, predictable system, meaning, as I said, maybe you have thresholds you're monitoring, you have some specific rules that you're setting up and that you have to then manage and I guess expand on. But it's mostly for things that's not that changing. Observability, on the other hand, is much more automatic. It looks on dynamic platforms in another way. For example, your Kubernetes environment, cloud scaling up, scaling down, public clouds and hybrid environments, these kind of things is more out of the box and automatic.
And also unpredictable.
And very unpredictable,
yeah.
Both in a good and a bad way, I guess. So the traditional monitoring is, as I already mentioned, it's mostly often at least, one tool per technology domain. So it automatically builds silos. You have your database team, you have your front-end team, you have your network team, and these different teams. And I don't know how many times you've been in meetings where they're talking about troubleshooting and how they have to correlate data from that tool to that tool and so on. However, observability is meant to, and in most cases does as well, look at, first of all, the whole technical platforms, the same KPIs as monitoring, I guess, but it's more about looking at the behavior of the platform. Services coming and going and users interacting with the platform in different ways. And the good thing is it's supposed to be in one view to break some silos.
Yes, and that leads us to why does organizations struggle to implement an observability practice or strategy when they have done traditional monitoring? And it's what Anders said in the end. What we see is that they try to usually take a traditional monitoring mindset, way of working, a process, and apply that to observability. So they keep doing observability in the silos and in the different teams and use it as a monitoring tool when it's not supposed to be. And on this picture we have a 10, 20, 70%, which we've seen over the course of the years we work with this with our customers. And what we see is that most organizations actually invest 90% of their energy into the 10% of the outcome, where the 90% will go to the 90%, as we would say it. And while choosing the right platform is important, an important part when starting your observability journey is that most organizations fall short because they neglect the people and the processes and the strategy in making observability successful. And then they blame the platform usually and say, oh, we need a new one, this didn't work, or we need another one for this type of problem, which often leads to tool sprawl and not a good success with observability.
Yeah, and these figures is basically why Conscia Observability started in the first place. We used to supply just the platforms, but as you can see, that's not really the problem. The problem is the processes and the adoption and people, basically. People are the problem. Okay, so observability is one part. Adding business observability on top of this is another topic, of course, that we are doing quite a lot with our customers now. The benefits of this, bringing some business metrics into it. First of all, we break the silos, as Sarah mentioned, with the coin picture there, that you have the business part and you have the IT part. And I don't know how many customers I've seen where the business part says that, okay, we have a problem because things are going bad business-wise in dollar and cents. And then you have to try to correlate that back to some IT monitoring platform, which is hard. With observability and business metrics, you tie it together, basically. An interesting thing that might be often forgotten, actually, is if you do this and you are monitoring, for example, the amount of revenue for your platform, you can much easier see that, okay, this new deploy or these fixes that development did actually increase the revenue. And that's a very nice thing, because it gets a little bit more strategic in the platform. You are suddenly able to see that, okay, it's actually worth spending money on developers. They actually do something. Another way, or another thing that could be interesting is if you have a very complex platform and a complex environment, maybe you don't own all the bits and pieces of it, then adding a metric on top, like the total number of orders or something like that, simplifies the process and makes you see one KPI that sort of covers the whole platform. In order to make your observability practice strategic, you do need to have business metrics. Otherwise, you're not tying business together with the IT part, and it says itself, basically. It's not going to be strategic. And
harder to get investment to actually put into observability.
Exactly. They are not that cheap, these platforms. Okay, so let's look into a few examples of what business metrics can actually be done. With traditional monitoring and some of the observability as well, you are looking at simple KPIs like, okay, I have a database CPU that's peaking at 94%. Okay, does that mean I have a problem, or does it not mean I have a problem? With observability and adding business observability, you're looking into other things, which would mean that you can say, okay, checkout takes 3 seconds, and it actually cut the conversion rate by 12%, meaning, okay, this problem actually has an impact on our revenue. And of course, it's a huge thing. We see it a lot when you're, where should I spend my time? Yeah, obviously where something is affecting business. I guess the most common example is customers and organizations looking at errors. They have several, lots and lots of errors from different services, like in this case from front end and customer info service perhaps. And they don't really know how to prioritize it. Most of the time they prioritize saying, okay, most of the errors come from this service. Okay, let's fix that first. But with an observability practice, with business insights as well, you are able to pinpoint, instead saying, like in this case, checkouts, they are dropping because on the front end service. Yes, the customer info service has an impact, but it's not on the actual checkouts. I know what to do. So it's a prioritization issue, basically. Okay, so let's look at a few examples of what business observability could be. This is quite a generic one. I just wanted to show this one to show that, yes, I showed a few business metrics like revenue and conversion rates and these kind of things, but it's also about monitoring the whole flow. So you have a transaction flow or a business flow in some sort of value chain, basically. Your customer does something, in this case probably some online thing, because you're monitoring online, the number of orders processed and so on. And this is sort of gives you a good overview of what you're actually doing. So this is actually a real customer example. That's why it's so blanked out. It shows you the number of searches in this case, but whatever sort of business transaction it is about. It also shows you confirmed orders, confirmed payment, it splits it into the different payment providers and so on, in order to be able to see, yes, these are the good payment providers, perhaps these are not so good, to make some sort of strategic decision. But so almost always interesting with these business metrics overviews is also the fact that you are comparing historical data, because sometimes you don't know if your platform is supposed to generate $100 or $200. So adding the concept of history as well is important. This is actually another quick example where we actually had a good usage of this. This is a company that has a specific type of transactions, and everything was actually showing green, or not everything, but most of the services was actually looking very good. But we do monitor the number of transactions and the number of successful ones, meaning the business KPIs basically. And we did see a sudden drop, as you can see, quite dramatic, to 0 during some specific time, which meant that, okay, now we know there is a problem. We need to look for what it is. In this case, it was a third-party provider that actually were returning HTTP 200 OK, but nothing actually happened.
Mm-hmm. So with those examples and coming back to, okay, how do we put this into practice? We usually see strategy, and as we mentioned during these minutes here, it's not really a selection of tools, but an understanding of mutual outcomes within the organization, and who owns what, and how is the organization working, and how does everything tie together. And as we mentioned, 10% of that comes from technology, but most of it comes from the processes and the people. And what ties into that is what type of roles we have, what is the team working with observability, and how do we enable the rest of the organization and more of the business side that maybe is not a part of the IT teams, and provide continuous improvement and adoption in order to get value out of the investment in the platform. And coming back to when we talked about traditional monitoring versus observability, using the ways you have been working with monitoring will not get you to the results you want with observability. So you need to have a different way of working. And these are the building blocks that we usually look at when we work with our customers and what we do together. And as you can see, it's around technical architecture as well as business goals and outcomes, and in a common Northern Star for the business.
Yeah, and it's not a one size fits all type of blueprint either. It depends a lot on your organization, of course, what type of specific goals you build for yourself, or you get the help to build. But it needs to be, well, you need to think about it. And the important thing, I think, is, you can always set this up in the beginning when you're starting your observability practice. But this is a continuous journey. You're adding new services. For example, you might be adding a new application. You might be getting new people on board. You might be expanding into business observability. You might be expanding into something else. So it means it's like a continuous work. You need to continue iterating this process basically. And I think that's where we see. Well, I wouldn't say most of the organizations, but a lot of the organizations actually failing because you don't build all of these. Basically, what we suggest that people do to get their practice together, and I guess to sort of to be able to leverage these things, is build a center of excellence. Meaning you have, every I guess organization has some sort of product owner for their tools. And that's great, you need that, but you also need to have power sponsors in different technical teams, and they should all be tied together, as I said, in some sort of center of excellence that helps, I guess, help adoption is one of the things.
And so even if it's different from company to company and your organization, what you do and what your business are, these will always be the same building blocks. And then when you go inside them, they look different. These are the ones that we suggest you to use for a healthy observability strategy and also outcome.
Right.
Yeah, I think
we are actually before time. That was very unexpected.
That was unexpected, yes. But we tried to fit everything around business observability and give you some examples into this. If you push forward.
Is this it?
Yeah, and we have 5 minutes left, and we thought we would leave that for questions. We got a few questions in. You can use the chat to ask us questions. But before we wrap up and start answering those, we have our next webinar that ties into this. And you know, AI is big, and as AI agents become increasingly capable of making decisions and acting autonomously, one question becomes more important than ever, and that's, can they trust the data that they are acting on? Our colleague, Mark the Neergaard, he will do the next webinar and explore why observability is becoming a critical foundation for AI readiness, and what organizations actually need to do to ensure that they have the visibility, reliability, and control in order to require or adopt AI with confidence. It's going to be on September 23rd.
Yes, I think so.
And you can already sign up on our website to that webinar as well. And we hope to see you there.
Okay, did we have any questions?
Yes, so diving into the first question.
We didn't actually mention that, but there is a question.
Yes, feel free to keep asking questions. So the first one we have is, we have started an observability journey and have onboarded several of the teams, but not all of them. Do you think we should get all the services teams on board before we start with these business metrics you talked about?
Okay. It's hard to answer. It depends a little bit on the organization, of course. If you wait, from experience, if you wait for all the teams to join your observability journey, it might take a little bit too much time. I know that we usually, but in some cases we do add the business observability aspect. For example, if you have a journey of, let's say, a bank that has a process or a business journey for doing loans, I guess, or for applying for loans. Then if you don't have the data, meaning all the services team for all these different processes, whatever they are in that kind of process, adding the total business metrics on top without having the IT and all these stuff in place actually accelerates the adoption, because then the teams feel left out. They want to be part of that as well. Yeah. We've seen it with monitoring, for example, a web application where you have different services, and then you provide a dashboard with the end results, but you have different services. And if you're the team that sort of don't have your data in there, you might feel like it's time to get it together, basically.
Okay, good answer.
Does that make sense?
I guess the person needs
to.
We have another question. I think we can manage one more. We are trying to move to a more modern way of monitoring as a part of our cloud journey. Do we really need more than what the cloud provider is offering? That's a good question.
I guess in parts of, it's a common question as well, in terms of observability, I guess. I mean, the public cloud providers, they usually have their own, they always have their own observability or monitoring tools on top of that. And so this question comes up quite a lot. So if you're not an organization that runs completely on a specific cloud, for example, Azure, let's say Azure, and you don't run any extra services, you don't have anything on-prem, nothing in AWS and so on, so it's not a hybrid solution. Well, then you might think about doing it. If you have hybrid solution, meaning you have stuff on-prem, then going with Azure tools would mean you create silos, basically. You have someone monitoring that part and someone monitoring that part. But in the end, it's about what kind of features and functions those have. And we're happy to help you look into your needs, because it's going to be a lot different for a small organization and a big organization. So unfortunately, there's not a yes-no answer to that one.
No, and it's like you mentioned, depending on what kind of environment you have, but with the observability platforms that we work with, at least, as you mentioned, you get more insight and can observe different type of services and applications that is not provided by that specific cloud provider.
Absolutely.
From network and the infrastructure, etc. I think we don't have time for more questions, but let's thank you for today and thank you for joining. If you have any other questions and you want to know more about this topic, feel free to email either Anders or me, and we're happy to answer any more questions that you might have. Other than that, we wish you a nice rest of the Wednesday.
Your Wednesday.
Your Wednesday, yeah. Thank you.
Thank you.